Eagles Entertainment.
The journey to the draft is driven by AAA. AAA, roadside is their strong side. Make AAA a part of your game day today. AAA, go ahead.
With the 21st pick in the NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select.
You're listening to the Journey to the Draft podcast.
Welcome to the Journey to the Draft podcast driven by AAA. I'm your host, Fran Duffy. We've got a fun show here today. Another episode live from the Indiana Convention Center here in Indianapolis as we're getting ready for the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine. Starts Thursday night when in terms of the on-field drills, get a real good sense of what we're going to see here this week. We'll talk a little bit through that here throughout the show. Before I get going into what we're going to see here in today's episode, just a quick reminder, if you get a chance, go on to PhiladelphiaEagles.com/journey survey. Help us out here, trying to make the show a little bit better for you guys at home. If you listen just in the spring, if you listen through all year round, no matter when you listen, if you like this show, just give us a little bit of love here. Just go on to that survey, take it, help us out here. It's all content-based questions, trying to make the show a little bit better. Appreciate everybody that has had a chance to do that. You can go onto that website again, PhiladelphiaEagles.com/journey survey. You can go to any of our Twitter accounts, whether it's mine at FDuffy3. You can go on to Ben's at Ben Fennell _NFL, at CMAC Eagles. All of us have it on our Twitter pages, as well as right on your phone on this podcast. Just scroll to the right, and you'll see in the description in the show notes that link will be in there as well. So appreciate everybody that has already filled out the survey to make the show a little bit better. Now, for today's episode, we've got Greg Cosell at the very top, NFL Films senior producer. We're going to go through a bunch of players that he has watched that he really likes. So we'll talk about some receivers, some defensive linemen, some corners. We'll get into a little bit of that there with Greg Cosell. After that, Ben Fennell is Chris McPherson going to join us here. We're going to go through Draft Buzz. We got Pick 6. We're going to kind of preview what to expect here over the next few days here in Indianapolis. Then we'll wrap things up with our draft mailbag. Now, let's get into the top here. It's time for Mr. Relevant and Greg Cosell.
It's time for Mr. Relevant.
Excited to welcome back to the Journey to the Draft podcast driven by AAA, our friend, NFL Films senior producer, Greg Cosell. Greg, welcome back to the show.
Fran, I'm still trying to get over that dinner last night.
Yeah?
It's a lot of food. There's a lot of food.
You were.
I was struggling.
You were the only one that did not partake in the shrimp cocktail.
No, because you know what? When it comes to food, I'm a little bit of a wimp. That hot sauce just, it's a little much for me.
It clears the sinuses until we come back next year. It's perfect.
Well, I'm going to be back at Harry and Izzy's tonight. You know?
Oh, there you go.
Jeez,
you got another crack at the apple.
Yeah.
Are we actually excited to have him on? I mean, we bring him on to eat basically here.
Right.
Eating donuts here on
nice
Radio
donut
Row.
here. Well, Greg, let's talk through some of these prospects because last time we had you on, it was back, I want to say like mid-October. We got some of your notes on some of the receiver prospects.
Well, I'm going to pull out my notes because I want
hear
to,
it.
otherwise I'm not going to sound real smart.
Well,
of course, a lot of people, CMAC might think that that's the way it normally is, but, we'll try to sound smart with you guys.
That's it. Yeah. Well, we got some of your thoughts on those receiver prospects from when you studied them over the summer. Since then, you've done a lot more work on some of these guys, and I know you are very, very high on Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver from Alabama, and you feel that he projects best to the NFL out of the guys in this group. What is it that, in your mind, separates Jeudy from the rest of the pack in such a clear margin?
Can we at least we got to set the scene here? He's got a brown leather suitcase.
Yeah,
with all these manila folders.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
I'm ready to rock and roll.
Prepped.
Yeah.
I'm on with the best. I got to, raise
This
my
is phenomenal.
game here,
I'm just trying, paint the picture for everyone listening.
All right,
at home,
all right.
So.
Well, Jerry Jeudy, to me, and I know that reasonable people disagree, but I thought Jerry Jeudy was hands down the number one receiving prospect in this draft class. And to me, there wasn't a real close second. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, he's got real good explosiveness. I mean, you just see the way he moves. He moves differently. But the thing that really stood out to me, and I actually got a chance to talk to Jerry Jeudy on Radio Row at the Super Bowl, and I was fascinated by his answer. I think that he has a very advanced and refined feel for route running. And most college receivers don't have that feel, Fran, as you know. You've been looking at tape a long time, just as I have. And I just thought he had a really good sense of how to use his vertical stem, particularly when he had free access, and how to set up defenders, whether it was a corner, whether it was a safety, depending on his split. Just had a really good understanding of how to do that. And because he was so explosive with his short area quickness and in and out of breaks, he could then easily separate. And he has vertical speed to get over the top of defenders. So, to me, given his physical traits, he's got pretty good length. He came in at 6'1", and his understanding of route running, to me, he's just the best receiving prospect in this class.
I think like when you talk about just how nuanced he is as
Yes.
a route runner, the only guy in this class that I feel like you can put at least in that similar tier is Justin Jefferson, the kid from LSU, and he's just not as explosive or twitchy as Judy. I mean, he's got that juice to him that Jefferson does not have.
Well, there's actually one other receiver I thought was similar in terms of understanding how to run routes. And that's the other Jefferson, Van Jefferson.
Yeah, Van Jefferson.
I thought Van Jefferson had a very good feel for route running as well. Now, he's not an explosive athlete.
Right, yep.
And usually guys like that, they're not high draft choices. But Van Jefferson could end up playing in the league for 10 years.
Sure.
But I thought Van Jefferson, and again, his father has played in the NFL and has been a receivers coach in the NFL for years, so he was probably taught the receiver position at a young age with the detail and the nuance. But I thought Van Jefferson was in that category as well.
Interesting.
So you said that you thought Judy is clearly the number one
Yes.
wide receiver prospect. What makes him better than CeeDee Lamb, who is, by most media analysts, you look at big boards, mock drafts, and the like, usually the first receiver listed there?
Yeah, and again, CMAC, reasonable, smart people. I like to think once in a while I'm both of those, but reasonable, smart people can disagree on this.
Of course.
But I don't think CeeDee Lamb is as sudden, is as explosive, is as nuanced. I think in every trait that I talked about with Judy, I don't think CeeDee Lamb is at that level. And in fact, Judy, to me, could line up either outside or in the slot and be highly effective. I saw CeeDee Lamb as maybe a slot receiver, maybe a movement Z, but I did not see CeeDee Lamb as an X receiver, the receiver that could line up as the single receiver to the boundary on the line of scrimmage. Maybe he can grow into that, but I just did not see CeeDee Lamb at the same level traits-wise as Judy in any of the necessary traits that I focus on.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the receiver position, look, there's so many names, so we could keep going on some of these guys. Jalen Reagor, excited to get your thoughts on him because I don't believe you shared your thoughts on him back in the fall. So what are your thoughts watching Jalen Reagor?
Jalen Reagor was a guy that grew on me the more I watched him. He was a guy I started watching, and initially I just wasn't sure, was he quick, was he explosive? And the more I watched him, I thought that he was kind of sudden and explosive, and I thought that he could run the route tree. He could get over the top of corners. I thought he was pretty nuanced too. Now, people start talking about numbers. Numbers don't mean anything to me. He didn't play with great quarterbacks this year, so the numbers are numbers.
Right.
But if you just isolate his traits, I just really thought that he had a nuanced feel. I thought he had a plan of how to run routes. I know he came in at 206 at the combine.
Yep.
He's a pretty rocked up guy. I think he could line up outside, which he did predominantly at TCU. I think you could line him up in the slot without a problem. He's got the body type to work inside
Lined up
amongst
in
the
the
bigger
backfield
bodies.
and took carries as a back too at that time. So you got that versatility for sure.
So to me, I think he's a really, really good prospect, and I think he can work all three levels of the defense and be a good player.
Interesting. Laviska Shenault. I mean, again, we're going like apples to oranges to watermelon to grapefruit here. How do you compare Shenault and what he brings to some of these other guys that we've talked about?
Shenault he's a little freakish with his size. And I know he came in at 227, which probably is high for what a lot of people might have thought, but he obviously thinks he can function effectively at that weight. He's another guy that he lines up all over the formation in the backfield. In today's NFL, he could be very effective with jet motion, orbit reverses. We saw Deebo Samuel in the Super Bowl have 3 big runs, working on reverses or jet motion. I forget, each specific play, but that kind of thing. Shenault could easily be that guy. He probably needs some work as far as refinement and nuance with his route running, but the physical traits are off the charts. And he's an explosive physical athlete. And he's terrific run after catch.
Speaking of run after catch, what are your thoughts of Henry Ruggs?
Now, Henry Ruggs, it's funny because ultimately I liked Ruggs' tape more than I like CeeDee Lamb's tape. Now, Ruggs was 5'11", 188. He's a little smaller, but I actually thought he ran good routes as well. I can picture in my mind right now, as you asked me about that, him just really making Christian Fulton of LSU look silly. He didn't get the ball on that particular play, but he made him look silly. The ball actually went to Judy on that play, but I think he's a pretty good route runner. He's as explosive as there is. How many times did we see him catch a short pass and turn it into a long gain? And that fits the NFL in the sense that every year the number of passes league-wide that are thrown 10 yards or under, air yards, seems to be increasing. So you're getting into a league where there's a lot of quick throws and run after catch. And he's another guy that you can use with jet motion, reverses, but he's arguably the most explosive athlete at wide receiver in this draft class. People are saying he could run a 4.22. I don't even know what that means, but he's going to run
fast.
The point is, the point is, as I was told my first year at the Combine by a veteran scout, fast guys run fast and slow guys run slow, and he's a fast guy, so he's going to run fast.
Yeah. There are like 100 different guys that are like, first-round mix, early second-round mix at receiver that like we haven't asked
Well, then
about.
it's what you want.
We haven't asked you about KJ Hamler. We haven't asked you about T.
Right.
Higgins. We haven't asked you about
I like T. Higgins a lot.
I want to ask you about Brandon Ayuk because I feel like he's a receiver that he gets mocked to the Eagles fairly often, and I feel like fans haven't bought in on Brandon Ayuk. You watch this kid, and his skill set is so intriguing.
Yes.
I want to hear from you how you feel he projects to today's NFL.
Well, he's also a guy that played on the West Coast, so I'm sure on the East Coast a lot of people didn't see him a lot. And I know I did him, and I'm trying to find my notes on him as we talk, because the thing that was really interesting about him was he came in under 6 feet, but his wingspan was 80, which was ridiculous.
It's like he's got pythons for arms.
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. And like I said, I'm trying to find him here, but I remember what I kind of said about him. He's another interesting guy in the fact that he's only played receiver for a few years.
Right, running back in high school.
Yeah, and so he's learning the position, but he's an explosive athlete. I think at this point he's a guy you really want in space. He's really good run after catch. He's probably not a refined route runner the way you think of a refined route
He
runner.
showed flashes, but not.
I agree.
Wasn't consistent.
I agree. But I think because of the explosive traits, there's a lot to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, he caught some in-breaking routes, and then he just pulled away from the defense at the college level because he's got that juice to him. But he's a guy you could use in multiple spots, line him up both outside and the slot. I think you could move him around. He'd probably fall into the category of, and I put this in quotes, prospect.
Right.
He may not be the guy that steps in and catches 80 balls, but he's a fascinating guy.
We'll transition over to the cornerback spot because I know you've watched some of these top guys here.
I have.
Look, we know Jeff Okudah, he's long gone at this point, by the time the Eagles pick. But there are a couple other guys I want to ask you about.
He just moves differently than the other guys.
He's outstanding.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about C.J. Henderson and
I've not watched him.
Okay, all right. So then Trevon Diggs.
I've watched.
Give us the elevator speech on Trevon Diggs.
I loved Trevon Diggs.
I do too.
I love how physical he is. I love how competitive he is. He's got great length. I think he's a smooth and easy mover. I think he's got great on-the-ball production, really good. Which it was, and I've talked with scouts about this over the years. That's not something they believe that can be taught. Either guys at corner have good on-the-ball production and can play the ball and make picks, or they can't. And a lot of corners are good corners, but they just never play the ball, and they never get any picks. They never get any turnovers. Diggs to me, and I think you could use him because of his size. If you wanted to line him up in the slot, he could probably do that. He's physical. My guess is there are probably some people, I don't see him this way, my guess is there are some people that might see him as a safety in the NFL, as a multi-dimensional safety, which is a position that's becoming increasingly important in this league, that sort of multi-dimensional player in sub-packages. My guess is he could fill that role as well. But as a corner, he is physical and competitive and long.
What are the traits at corner that you need to have from your years of scouting and evaluating tape to succeed?
Well, I think, there's multiple traits. First, I think at some point in this league, everybody's going to have to play press coverage. So then you have to look at how a guy plays press. You have to look at his balance. One thing I often notice, and I look for this all the time, when you see guys in press, what is their first move? Two things go with that. Are they patient? In other words, are they waiting for the receiver to declare, which you should? And a lot of guys get on their heels as their first reaction, and that's bad. And guys who you don't want to see guys start to lean back on their heels, because then there's a recovery element to that. So those are two things right away. Secondly, are they physical press man corners or are they mirror press man corners? So if they're physical, you're looking to see how they use their hand or their hands. Do they jam? Do they disrupt? Can they do that without losing their balance and their body control? Because if you do that and lose your balance and body control, in the NFL, guys run by you. Or are they mirror press man coverage, meaning that they'll wait for the receiver to declare off the line of scrimmage. They won't put their hands on him, but then they'll, depending on the route, they just try to get into either the inside hip or the outside hip and just mirror him. So there's different kinds of press, and that's, you kind of look for those things.
Last guys I want to ask about are the safety spot. Xavier McKinney, Grant Delpit kind of have gone back and forth as who's the top safety in this draft. Early on, everybody had it as Delpit. Seems like McKinney's getting a little bit more buzz now. Different kinds of players, but both kind of versatile chess pieces for a defense.
And I think it gets to the point, and I know you and I are going to talk about this further, but it gets into the sort of that multi-dimensional, positionless kind of safety/corner, guys who can do multiple things for you in sub-defenses. You know, McKinney was essentially a safety, but he also played in the box. He also played slot corner at times. McKinney was very reminiscent of, to me, watching tape of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson coming out of Florida a year ago, who was a major piece of the Saints defense, playing about 3 or 4 different positions throughout the course of this season. And I see McKinney being a very similar guy. Delpit intrigued me to no end. And again, I don't make lists, as you know, and then it comes down to what you're looking for, but there's something about Delpit with his length and his size and his fluid, easy movement that just really, really intrigued me.
Yeah.
And he can also play multiple positions. And I think both those guys fit when you're looking for that secondary player who can, play on the back end, play over the slot, can play in the box, can blitz. I mean, McKinney had sacks. I think Delpit had a sack against Trevor Lawrence in the championship game.
Right, yep.
And he did it off the slot. So, I mean, you're dealing with multi-dimensional safeties that I think really are important in today's game.
Well, Greg, we're excited to get your thoughts as we get closer to the draft. We'll have you back on the show a couple times here before we get to late April. But thanks for joining us here once again on the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA. We'll be hearing from you next week on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade. Make sure you check that interview out wherever podcasts be found. Greg, enjoy the rest of the Combine.
Thanks, guys.
Now it's time for Draft Buzz.
All right, guys, so Draft Buzz here, and we're going to get things started here. And really, as I welcome in Ben Fennell. Ben, welcome back, man.
It's good to be here. And I got to say, it's always an exciting time when Greg Cosell turns the page from NFL into college time. And I feel like I'm just waiting for that. And when he can finally dig into the college tape, he's obviously pretty deep in NFL tape with his matchup show.
Yep.
But that moment right before the Combine, it's all college, and he has a lot of knowledge and a lot of good stuff there on prospects.
We appreciate all draft analysts, right? But I feel like the guys that study the NFL from an X and O standpoint throughout the course of the fall are especially valuable because they are able to see these are how these guys play in college. More importantly, that's how they project to today's NFL and how they'll be used in today's league. I think having that knowledge, there are a few guys in this business that I think have that. You are certainly one of them. Dan Jeremiah is certainly one of them. Greg, certainly one of them. So love having his expertise whenever possible.
It's such a balance. You can't closet yourself in just one industry.
Yeah.
If you're just closed door NFL, you're a little out of the loop with college. If you're all about college scouting, you're a little bit disconnected with the projections of the next level.
Yep.
You really have to balance your knowledge of what you're projecting from college into the NFL. How is it used? It's a lot of tape. It's a lot of football. But, this is the nature of the industry, and the ones that really put in the time and know both aspects are the gold standard of the draft coverage.
Kind of give you a little peek behind the curtain. I posted a story Wednesday morning. We call it a day in the life.
Yes.
Fran, you've written some of these pieces in the past. We've had some of our scouts. I remember Joe Douglas did one for us last year. So I basically profiled 2 of our scouting assistants, okay? Amina Solomon and Lee Valerio. And with Lee, he's been balancing the college and the pro side, and he's explained how much that's helped him in terms of what you see in college, and you go and you see who's playing on Sundays, then you go back to college and you can see, all right, this is what it should look like. Now when I go back to college, like, ooh, is that is that going to translate? And then Mina said the same thing during the interview where she was like, someone in college can put up all these great stats, but then you look at like, wait, that body prototype, you don't see that in the NFL. Is that going to be able to transition and carry over? Can you project that to the next level? So it's interesting when you talk about making sure you have your feet in kind of both aspects of the game there.
And I feel like some of the best organizations are now starting to continue to cross-train their scouts and the guys behind the scenes. You don't just stay pro scout. You don't just stay regional scout. The best teams are starting to move those guys around on a year-to-year basis, not because you're necessarily inefficient in scouting the Pacific Northwest. It's just staying balanced in your skill set. And the good teams, like even the Patriots, will go from coaches on the field to scouts, to pro scouts, to college scouts, and back around. And the teams that I think diversify their personnel behind the scenes, you're just adding to the knowledge and to the hopper of information of all the people behind the scenes there. And, and the best teams really spread it around.
I mean, look at Jeremiah Washburn for the Eagles now.
Exactly.
Okay.
Perfect, yeah.
He's like an assistant defensive line coach, senior defensive assistant essentially. But he's also got the director of player personnel title as well. So he's helping on both
And just
aspects.
the balance in the scouting departments. You got the former players, you got the lifelong scouts, you got kind of the analytics statistician guys that can break things down from a different perspective. So I think balancing your scouting department like the Eagles do and bringing in a bunch of guys right off the field, Connor Barwin, Darren Sproles, I think Brent Selleck's over there as well in an interesting role. So as much as there's some guys right off the field, it's a bunch of guys that's never seen the field as well, and I think that's always an interesting kind of mix on how scouting departments are built from the top up, or from the bottom up.
Having as many opinions in the building as possible is always a great way to go about it. But let's get into some of the news.
What's that John Wooden quote? Surround yourself with smart people who will argue with you.
That's it.
Yeah, that's everything. Yeah.
No question. So let's get into some of the notable items we've seen come across the news wire here throughout the course of the last 24 hours since yesterday's episode. Big one from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero reporting no team has asked Jalen Hurts, the Oklahoma quarterback, to work out at any other position. And it's a little bit notable. I think when you're talking about Jalen Hurts, his projections in the NFL, some people thought, is he going to have to move to running back? He's a tough kid. Does he have that ability? No team at this point has asked him to work anywhere else but at quarterback.
Is there a different conversation the last 5 years? And I don't want to say it like player entitlement.
Right.
But that's kind of my lack of other terms. But how did Brad Smith feel, and Josh Cribbs, and Julian Edelman, and all the guys in the previous 10, 15 years about having to change positions, never getting an opportunity to throw right off the bat? And to today's and saying, I'm a quarterback through and through, I don't care what you guys think. I think it's kind of interesting conversation on falling in line, being a company guy, being a teammate, doing anything you can to get in the league and stay. And then also having pride with your skill set, your experience, and how the NFL is viewing your skill set. I think that's kind of an interesting conversation, a little bit of a different era of viewing yourself.
Is it also the way the game is played now, where you
that's part
have
of it. Yep.
more athletic quarterbacks, whereas back then with the Brad Smiths and the guys you mentioned before, that really wasn't as prevalent.
Right.
You had more of your statue pocket passers where those guys weren't going to fit the mold. Now you can have someone where you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at what Patrick Mahomes, you look at the mobility Carson Wentz brings to the table, and more of those guys can fit in today's NFL.
I always wonder how Randall Cunningham and Achilles Smith feel about today's game. They're probably just missed it.
Missed it by
just
20
missed
years.
It, yeah.
Even like Michael Vick, what would Michael Vick do in today's game and the way that it's played in the NFL would be a little bit different.
But I also think just the reaction to the conversation of the drills is interesting and says a lot about the player. And I may be a quarterback. I don't care what you ask me to do. If I'm Nick Marshall and you say go backpedal and let me see you in DB drills, sure, I'll do it.
Sure.
So it's a fine line on kind of just doing what you told and also being prideful of your skill set and what you think you can do at the next level.
Sure. I think to kind of just move on to the next part of this, some weigh-in stuff came in today over the last 24 hours as well. I want to focus on the offensive lineman because one measurement that I do feel is pretty important is arm length for offensive tackles. All of the big-name guys, especially these underclassmen, all came in with over 34-inch arms, and so they kind of checked that box. We're talking, Jedrick Wills from Alabama, 34 1/4. Andrew Thomas, 36 1/8. Mekhi Becton, 35 5/8. Tristan Wirfs, 34 even. Lucas Niang, 34 1/4. Trey Adams, 34 3/8. Austin Jackson, 34 1/8. So all those guys kind of checked that box. I think length is important at the tackle spot. It is important in the offensive line spot. Can you overcome it? Sure, you can to a certain extent, but I think having those long levers, I think that does certainly help you at that position, certainly in the trenches on either side.
The receiving class in 2020 is completely stealing the show from this tackle class.
Yeah.
This is a deep group.
Yep.
Day 1 players, day 2 players, developmental players, back-end question players that probably have some upside. I'm intrigued with, I could rattle off 20 tackles that I think are draftable right off the top of my head.
You can't say that a lot of years.
It's really not a headline-making, news story because of the receiver group, the quarterback conversation, but this is a deep tackle group, and the NFL needs tackle depth, and we have to stop these gazelle edge rushers. And we were both at O-line masterminds over the summer, and I'm hoping to see a lot of these guys over there and joining that think tank on how do we stop these edge rushers in the NFL.
A lot of people say that's the biggest athletic mismatch on the field.
No question.
Defensive line versus offensive line, and so trying to find those guys that can hold up, maybe not even win the matchup, but just hold up. I think is certainly of major importance, trying to protect the quarterback.
And what's your full picture on the arm length? I mean, if you show up with 36-inch arms, is that saying you can be a day 1 starter? No doubt about it, because we've seen the Raven Clarks of the world. And
yes. I think you still need it. I guess, we talked a little bit about the measurement stuff yesterday in terms of like hand size and stuff, right? And to me, it's not a problem unless it's a problem, right? So, like if I see a guy who really struggles anchoring, okay, if guys get into his chest and he comes in and he's got 31 and 7/8 inch arms, he's going to have guys in his chest a lot, and he's going to have trouble anchoring a lot. So then I'm like, all right, well, that's going to be a problem for him. If I see a guy who's got short arms, but he can hold up on contact, and he doesn't give up a lot of space, and he's able to drop that anchor, now I'm like, okay, yeah, he can overcome that to a certain extent. Or if he's just really good with his hands to prevent himself from getting into those situations, you can overcome that. But I think the length, again, it kind of speaks to, like, all right, can you get yourself out of trouble before it gets to be a troublesome situation?
Right.
That's what I'm looking for from that position for sure.
Were there any players who came in below the threshold?
Not the super big names. I'm going to go through really quickly the top guys.
I mean, of the top guys. I mean, that's really where.
No, so Wills checked the box. Andrew Thomas, Mekhi Becton. I'm just going down the list of guys that I see here on this list. Josh Jones came in 33 and 7/8. So you're not gonna crush him on that. The kid from Houston, Tremaine Ankrum, just underneath it from Clemson.
He was one that had some questions with his length. He's obviously short.
He's very short.
Ezra Cleveland was one that they expected to be short. I think he just made it in over 33.
Sadiq Charles, I guess, would be one. He came in at 33 even.
Yeah.
So that would be one. And some people do think that he's a guard anyway. He came in at 321 pounds. He was listed 295 by LSU. He came in at 321.
And they weren't afraid to get him out on the perimeter and some screens and stuff. He moved pretty well. I'm not sure what he played at in the season. Probably closer to 300 if I had to guess.
And he talked a little bit today about how he put on a lot of weight. I was around him for a few minutes today, and we can transition now to the media availability real quick. C-Mac, I know you were over there for a few minutes. I spent some time around some of those guys. I thought Sadiq Charles, he talked about putting on some of that weight, and how he's done it over the last few weeks, really, just to get himself ready. One thing I saw that was interesting, I forget who it was that reported it. It might have been Tom Pelissero as well, that said that teams now, new change for the Combine, they're making them weigh in again before workouts.
The old double weigh-in.
Really?
Yeah, to make sure that they're working out at what they weigh, because there's an extra day in between. So the guys are weighing in Monday and not working out till Thursday. They're going to have them weigh in again on Thursday, which is, I think, is a smart move.
Then it's almost, why not do it all Thursday? I guess because you want to parade them in front of the teams to show the body types.
I don't. That's the thing.
All the other measurements. I mean,
I don't know that they're going to do the full weigh-in again. I think it's more like, all right, just go through and, hey, just step on the scale real quick again before you jump in.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I don't know that for sure, but that would be my assumption.
It's going to be a long week for these kids.
It is.
It's a long process. It's mentally exhausting. I mean, they've already had some late nights. They're going to have early mornings now with the schedule. So it's a long week for these kids.
No
it's
question.
Exhausting. You know, it's a week-long job interview.
No question.
You're not just showing up for one interview. It's a week-long marathon of a job interview. And I'm also interested to see how well reported those weights are.
Right.
I want to see some guys who put on 20 pounds in 2 days.
Right. Yeah. No. Or more
lost
than
12
no. It's
who
more
lost
the
12
who
pounds.
lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Who had rocks in their pockets
Yeah.
at the weigh-in. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I think that'll be.
Who had
that'll be
that
very
big
interesting.
meal over at St. Elmo's before they got on the
Yeah,
scale.
who drank 17 liters of water before they stepped up there, and then had to run to the men's
I wonder
room
how well
afterwards.
reported that'll be.
Yeah, no, it's a good
should
question.
the public even be privy to the weight change?
Something tells me the weight stuff usually gets
It'll
out.
get
right?
out.
Yeah, so the weight
Everything's pretty transparent.
Yeah,
They
I
do a
think
great
so.
job in keeping everybody in the loop, the teams and the media.
Real quick, I'm just going to browse through a couple of these guys that I talked to today. Just a couple of interesting nuggets. Ben, I know you love some of the questions I get to ask some of these guys from talking about other players and
this
stuff
is
like
best,
that,
yeah,
right?
love
So,
this.
I'll just kind of pump through a few guys. Derek Brown came up time and time again. Running backs are talking about Derek Brown. Tackles are talking about Derek Brown. Guards and centers are talking about Derek Brown. He showed up time and time again in terms of who was the toughest guy that you saw on film this year. So not really a huge surprise there in the future top 10
He's
pick.
massive.
Yeah.
He's huge.
He came in huge this morning.
I want to see him do the pass rush drills. I want to see how technical he is with his hands.
Yep.
He comes in a little bit like an Ndamukong Suh and just a
Yeah.
big ball of bull in a china shop. Not a whole lot of technical hand usage. You just cannot stop a guy at 320 and powerful and relentless and pretty athletic feet. And I would want to say he's like a Fletcher Cox, but Fletch really kind of developed some hand usage in the
Right.
pros. And he's going to be a terror to stop in the NFL. He's going to be a fun player to look at here in shorts and a T-shirt.
Yeah, I think he was certainly a guy that kept popping up in terms of most toughest guy, most impressive guy. Overall, a couple guys that really impressed me. I talked with Nick Harris, the Washington center.
Okay.
Thought he came off really well. Paul Domowitch from the Philadelphia Daily News is going to be doing a very interesting piece, it seems. He was asking him a few questions about his comparison to Jason Kelce. And he talked about how he watches a ton of Jason Kelce film. Like, that's the guy he watches the most of. He's got a connection to Howard Mudd and stuff like that up
really?
in
Okay.
Washington. So, expect that piece from Damo here in the coming days.
And
or
Nick's big
weeks,
thing,
but-
he's a little undersized.
Yes.
So if you're undersized center, everyone's mind immediately goes to Jason
Jason
Kelce,
Kelce,
which
yep.
8 years ago you wondered if he could survive in the NFL.
Right.
And now you're sitting here, and he's a all-pro center, and potentially one of the best centers in the NFL.
Right.
Maybe even a fringe Hall of Famer at this point. So, athleticism at the center position is obviously coveted. You come in at 290, 6'2",
Yep.
you can survive.
Yeah.
Can you get put in a system to succeed is the question.
Yep.
And we've seen it both ways with Jason Kelce's career. So, guys like Nick Harris or Matt Hennessy or somebody like that, good thing to watch Jason Kelce.
The crazy thing is in 2011, Jason Kelce's going in the 6th round. No one that undersized is going to be selected high in that draft. And
Right.
now you look at Garrett Bradbury going in the middle of the 1st round last
Exactly.
year.
Now it's a coveted trait. And
Exactly.
It's the athleticism. And you may be undersized, but you're making up for that with the foot speed, getting linebackers on the second level, screen game, perimeter action. That's all part of this wide open NFL on Sundays.
Yeah, no question. Certainly a guy that I think has a bright future. I wanted to ask him about the Senior Bowl, how he felt that went. I thought he was a little bit up and down that week, but I think this is a week where he will look good down here at Lucas Oil Stadium. A couple other guys that really impressed me. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, really, really impressive at the podium. I thought he handled himself really, really well. Logan Stenberg, the guard from Kentucky, really enjoyed talking with him. Lucas Niang, sounds like he's going to do everything for his pro day.
Okay.
Not going to perform here this week in Indianapolis. He's coming off that hip injury.
That's right,
that
yeah.
cost him most of the season. Talked to him. He actually hurt it in training camp 2018. Played through it all through his junior year. They told him afterwards it was torn in the after the season. They said, "Do you want to do surgery? You want to try and rehab, or kind of play through it?" And he decided no surgery. Tried to play through it and kind of rest it up. Got through camp, got through the first couple games, and they told him he's got to shut it down. So
There's a couple offensive linemen with some injury history, but this guy, he looks the part.
Yep.
And when he's healthy and on tape, put on 2018 against Ohio State, Week 1, Chase Young, Nick Bosa, he handled his own. He was no problem with those guys.
Lucas Niang is going to go in like the 2nd or 3rd round, and someone's going to get a 1st-round
No
quality
question.
tackle.
He's already been working with Paul Alexander behind the
Yep.
scenes and getting some NFL pass sets and really athletic kid. Just the injury history.
Yep.
On top of some other guys like Natan Muti and some people like that have put good stuff on tape. Just the medicals are big this week.
Fran, do you follow up with any guys who you previously spoke with at like the Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl?
Typically not, because there's so many guys here that it's like I can either talk to this guy that I haven't talked to yet, or I can follow up. So
Yeah.
it's rare that I do. Sometimes I do, but it's typically rare. One other guy that really stood out, speaking of Senior Bowl, was Lloyd Cushenberry. he was really, really impressive. I thought he really handled himself well up at the podium. Not one question in particular that stands out, but I walked away from that thinking, like, this guy, he gets it. He's got his stuff together.
He was one of my Senior Bowl favorites.
Yeah.
So
They're doing interview training down at LSU. A lot of these kids look pretty good this week.
Yeah.
Edwards-Helaire, Joe Burrow's obviously a rock star. Thad Moss came off really well.
Burrow just was holding court yesterday.
Right.
He had a chair up at his podium, so he's up there and he's just elbows on the table, just having a chat with the guy at the bar. That's what it looked like. He was holding court.
Cushenberry sharp. Justin Jefferson
Yeah.
was pretty sharp, and a lot of intriguing LSU players, obviously coming off the undefeated national championship season.
No question. All right, so let's get to our next segment here. It's time for Pick Six.
Now it's time for Pick Six.
All right, so today for Pick Six, we're going to do something a little bit different. Usually, we bounce around, and me and C-Mac will give 3 things, or me, C-Mac, and Ben will each give two items. C-Mac's actually going to present the 6 players here in this segment. But before he gets into those 6 players, what we're going to do is he's going to present 6 players that I covered in my Combine cheat sheet. So every day, starting on Thursday morning, whatever positions are working out that night, you can go on to PhiladelphiaEagles.com and check out. I did a full position previews, these cheat sheets for each position. So Thursday morning, it'll be the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, and the tight ends. Friday, O-line and running backs. On Saturday, it'll be the front 7, the edge rushers, D tackles, and linebackers, and then corners and safeties on Sunday. So what I basically did was try to cover as many players as I could, short little blurbs, in all the same categories in every position. So real quickly, top of the heap was just the number one, who's viewed as the number 1 player, workout warrior, the guy that I expected to perform best in the athletic testing portion of the workout. Off the radar, a guy that I thought was going to test really well that people aren't necessarily talking about, could be a lower level guy or just a name that is kind of flying under the radar, but certainly keep an eye on to be a really good athletic tester. Stopwatch shocker, kind of similar but a little bit different in that this is a guy that is a big name player that people aren't expecting to test overly well, but I think is going to really kind of light up the stopwatch here and light up the track in terms of how he tests. We'll kill the drills, more about the position drills, so who's going to do well in the position-specific things that we talked about last week. Hit on that in that category. Trust the tape is all about players that, look, we're not expecting them to test well, and we shouldn't knock them for it because they're not great athletes on tape. But if it's a good player, this is a guy that knows how to play the game. So that's my trust the tape. Most productive college player, that kind of speaks for itself. 1-year wonder, a guy who only really played at a high level for 1 year of college football. Best pro comparison, again, kind of self-explanatory. Your best story, a guy that's got a really interesting background. Small school standout. Philly connection, a guy that's kind of tied in to Philadelphia or to the Eagles. And then most to prove, a guy that's got a lot to prove here. A couple other things that I would also work in there. Position drill to watch. So I picked a position drill and what I felt was most important, some of the things to kind of look for when these position drills start on TV. So when Ben is up there, he'll do his the video packages as to how those translate to the field. So it's just some of the coaching points that I look for in each of those drills. And then what I call Mr. Average, just kind of give you a sense of the measurements and all these testing scores, all these numbers. What is the average over the last decade of all the players at each position? So if you see, this guy ran a 6.73 cone, or he ran a 4.58 40-yard dash, what does that mean in terms of that position? Is that a good number? Is that a bad number? Is that an average number? Hopefully that Mr. Average can give you a sense. So my hope is that these Combine cheat sheets give you a little bit of a leg up as you're watching all the action unfold here the rest of the week.
You have them up on your phone.
That's
be
it.
able to
These are
scan
great
through.
pieces, easy to absorb. They're
Yes.
quick. They're different too. They're not the normal Combine previews you see everywhere across national media landscapes. They're very particular. Obviously, some cool little superlatives there. But fire it up daily right before the Combine broadcast and get caught up on what to look for.
I'll be tweeting them out every day for sure.
Yeah.
And Ben, take us through, when does the broadcast start for you on NFL Network?
So I think the next 3 days is going to be 4 to 11, 4 to 11, 4 to 11. 2 to 7.
2 to 7 on Sunday.
So
That's for the defensive backs.
3 7-hour days and then a 5-hour day. I think we're going to do Run Rich Run.
It's on Sunday, right?
Yes, I'm not sure the timing of that just yet, but there's always a couple other elements to work in, and but the timing being different this year is kind of interesting.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
How many videos have you put together?
me particularly of
Yes.
XO videos. So we're talking breakdown videos. We're pushing over 100.
Wow.
So I want to say right about 110 or so. So that's college player breakdowns. We do some position prototypes showing what does it look like in the NFL. What's the ideal position look like? and then explaining the drills and trying to show guys running at the combine and then using that drill, that movement pattern, those traits with their team on Sundays in NFL games and trying to just explain what you're seeing on the field here in shorts and T-shirts, that it does equate, and you will see it on the football field. Sometimes you just need a little help in bridging them together.
Before we get into the 6 players, any Eagles featured?
Oh, we have tons. Yeah,
Okay.
we have. I mean, Jason Kelsey's our prototypical center. I mean,
Yep.
that's an easy one right there. Tons of drill XOs of Eagles. We have Andre Diller doing a kick slide, one of the more athletic-looking tackles last year, firing out of his stance there in pass
Awesome.
pro. Avante Maddox, a great 90-degree break. He's a really good defensive back a couple years ago coming out of Pittsburgh who's settled in with us. So definitely a bunch of
You
Eagles.
have Miles Sanders, XO, right?
We do have a Miles Sanders
Ooh.
running the wheel route last year. He caught a nice wheel against Minnesota for us
Yep.
this year. So obviously the Eagles, that offense, really easy to find some translatable traits as well. Carson Wentz, some drops from under
There.
center, 5-step drop curls, things like that. So we have plenty of Eagles all over that broadcast.
All right, so let's get into the 6 players. And I'll start with this, Ben, okay? Fran wrote the pieces. I edited them.
Okay.
I'll give you the category and position. See maybe if you can.
Ooh, this is
interesting.
interesting. I like
Yeah.
this.
All right, so the first category, workout warrior, okay? Going to perform the best in the athletic portion of the timing and testing drills.
Keep in mind that this won't be the top player, so it's not going to be it won't be Jeff Okudah, because Jeff Okudah is the top player. He's got that superlative.
Yes.
So eliminate Jeff Okudah from
Okay.
the list.
Okay? At cornerback, workout warrior.
And it has to be at corner.
At
Yes,
corner.
at
This is
corner.
a corner.
Workout warrior.
So Fran does one for every position, but we're spotlighting 6 of them. So this one is the workout warrior at the cornerback
And I'll tell you what,
position.
this was picking the guys that I wanted to highlight as the good testers from this group was really hard, because there were like a lot of options that I really could have written about for that
Fran, this
cornerback
one's
spot.
easy. This one's a lock. All right, we got a lot of 4-3 corners.
Yes.
We got some jumpers.
Yes.
We got some fluid movements.
Right.
There's only a couple guys that check all of those boxes.
Right.
Cameron Dantzler at Mississippi State
Ooh.
is going to jump through the roof.
He is.
He's
Yep.
going to run 4.4s. He's going to look fluid in all his movement drills. He's going to look like a freak show out there. Kind of the way almost like Kevin King has looked at the University of Washington
Like
in his
that?
transition to the pros. So I expect him, who I think was a long jump champion coming out of high school, if I'm not mistaken. There's a bunch of guys with some impressive accolades off the field. But, I mean, the Utah kid, Javelin Guidry,
Yep.
he's going to run 4.3s, maybe 4.29. But collective workout warrior, Cameron Dantzler, is going to turn some heads this week.
So you are correct in that it was a corner from the SEC. You are incorrect that it was Cameron Dantzler. I
Well,
went
there's
with
a lot of corners from the SEC.
Yeah,
out
I went
here.
with C.J. Henderson.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I feel like he's going to light it up, man.
Yeah.
Like, I just like the way that kid moves is just different. Dantzler was my stopwatch shocker as a guy that I felt was good, like, because people aren't really talking about Dantzler as a guy that's going to test, like, oh, he's going to test really well, and I do think he's going to test well, so I put him in there as my stopwatch shocker. But Henderson, man, I just think, like, I mean, you and I have talked about him, we've watched him. He just is so easy with everything he does, his speed, his fluidity, his change of direction, like, really, really impressive athlete.
Yeah, Henderson's really impressive. You know he's going to run well. You know he's going to look good in drills. Thankfully, there aren't a whole lot of open field tackling drills for him to put on some of those questions on display.
We won't see that.
But, yeah, he definitely, on top of a lot of other SEC corners here, are going to look really good.
All right, going to stopwatch shocker.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to the defensive tackle position.
Okay.
So, can you name Fran's selection for stopwatch shocker? Again, someone who people in the media don't expect to put up good times, who, is going to surprise us here in Indianapolis, looking for his pick along the defensive tackle.
If you want a hint, I can give you a hint.
Nah, I got you.
right.
I got you. This is
All right.
easy. This
All
is
right.
easy. I got you
Okay.
figured out.
Okay,
Because this
yeah.
guy didn't have tons of production.
Right.
All right, so everyone in the media is
That's
going to go
correct.
look at his stat total or sack total and be like, oh, he didn't do anything.
Yep.
But when Neville Gallimore, 300 pounds, runs 4.85 in 2 days, look out for him as a first-round prospect.
So
here.
he's my workout warrior. Because he's the guy who's going to rip it apart. I mean, this is the guy who's going to.
I got you dialed in, just not in the right, not in the right
Yeah,
pegs
you're
here.
right. You're right. I went Jordan Elliott.
Okay, yeah.
I think Jordan Elliott is twitched up, man. Like that kid.
He makes a lot of plays out to the numbers, man. He's hustles.
man,
he has
dude.
good foot speed.
I just watched him for the first time last week. Dude, I am infatuated with Jordan Elliott.
I put his tape on. I don't remember. I was really late to him. I think early January. I think
Yeah.
I just learned about him in December.
Yeah.
It was like blown away. I think I texted a couple people like, "You watch him? You watch him?" And they might have texted DJ right away.
Yeah.
Like, Jordan Elliott, top of the list. Let's go.
Dude,
He just declared.
Every week on the show, it felt like from like December on, there was Lance Zierlein. It was Mike Renner from Pro Football Focus. It was Dane Brugler from The Athletic. Like, everyone kept bringing up Jordan Elliott. Jordan Elliott's a sleeper. Jordan Elliott's a sleeper. And I'm watching him like, Jordan Elliott is really disruptive. He's explosive. He's powerful. He's violent. Like, checks a lot of boxes. I do know, like, kind of a one-year wonder. He transferred from Texas.
Right.
He was a bigger, he was heavier, and he lost a lot of weight for this year and then declared. Like, you got to not put that aside, but you take just what we've seen on field this year. Dude, he's impressive, man.
Yeah, and I use PFF a lot. I love their data, their analytics. We can argue the grades all day.
Right.
Yes. People have different
Separate kind
opinions.
of deal, yep.
But for a guy to be graded a top defensive tackle as your pass rush and run, that's a eye opener. Put him to your top of the list. Watch him. Come up with your own opinion type of thing. And there's something in the water in that defensive tackle room and defensive end room in Missouri. They pumped out tons of great players. I think I compared him to a Sheldon Richardson.
Yep.
He makes a lot of plays out to the numbers like Fletcher Cox. So they're doing something right down there in the D-line, and he obviously looked pretty good. High production in a variety of areas, too.
Yeah, he's really, really impressive.
All right, so now we're going to go to Fran's off-the-radar pick, okay? This is someone who is going to come out of nowhere, okay?
What
to
position?
wow us. We're staying on defense at linebacker. So someone who's
off the radar.
Off the radar, but is going to test really, really well.
Yeah. No one's talking about him right now.
Take some thought here. Who would I put as my workout warrior? It's not going to be that guy.
Yes.
Off the radar is interesting. I got to put myself into Fran's off the radar mode here.
Of course.
But don't think, because I put a lot more work. I have to think of who's off the radar for the fans. Like, fans aren't going to necessarily. This isn't a guy that's a household name right now.
I want to go Akeem Davis-Gaither, but I'm not going to.
Okay, that's a good guess, but it's not Akeem Davis.
We're going to go with everybody's favorite Azusa Pacific transfer, Michael Walker. Fresno State, really athletic linebacker, played next to Jeff Allison, who was a stiff last year. Really good foot speed, athletic, coverage skills. He looks like a Akeem Davis-Gaither who's getting a lot of love. Michael Walker, I haven't seen a whole lot of love getting.
Yep. Michael Walker went to the Shrine Bowl.
Yep.
This guy that I picked went to the Senior Bowl.
Okay.
Great track athlete. From the same part of the country.
Oh, we got to be going Davion Taylor.
Yep, there you go.
Who was a late riser because he didn't play high school football. He went to JUCO.
He practiced in high school but did not play in games.
Right.
Because of religious reasons, did not play in games in high school.
Wow.
So then transferred to, or not transferred, but
JUCO
then went to
first,
JUCO
yeah.
and was able to finally convince his parents that, like, hey, like, I want to play football. Played football at the JUCO level, went to Colorado, and the rest is history. He was a productive player, but a supreme athlete. Ran track at Colorado. Like, this guy is an explosive
Linebacker on the track team, like legitimate track athlete.
Right.
And obviously Colorado, not a whole lot of national games. They weren't really contenders, so his name isn't in the national media and in the spotlight like some of the others, like Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen and some of those guys.
Queen was my workout warrior.
Oh, he was, yeah.
He
okay.
was my guy. Because, like, Queen is, he's like stupid explosive.
I think Kenneth Murray is going to look like the way Devin White did last year.
I almost put him as my stopwatch shot, or did I? I think I might have put him as
He
my
gets that
stopwatch
big
shot.
245 frame moving, man, it does not stop. He flies around. He's going to look great in a 40. He's going to look great moving around left and right.
Yep.
He's massive, too.
Kenneth Murray I used as my pro comparison.
I hope he puts a neck roll in his T-shirt this week at the Combine. All right?
It won't look right if he doesn't. Yeah, it won't look right if he doesn't.
Oh, no, he's on neck roll. I think he does the backboard.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
That's a good call. Yes.
Because, he's just thumping running backs.
Right. Sure.
All right, so next one, we're going to stay the last defensive pick here.
Okay.
This is Fran's trust the tape among the edge rushers. Okay. Trust the tape among the edge rushers, someone who we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast in recent weeks.
And we got to trust the tape because
Fran's
skeptical about what he's going to see here this week.
How he's going to test.
Yes.
How he's going to test.
He might test okay, but it's not going to be eye-popping numbers.
And there's a couple that
very
that come
productive
right to
player.
mind here. I think Bradley Anai is a really good pass rusher. I don't know if he's going to test particularly great. It's a guy that wins with violent hands. AJ Epinesa. Don't put this guy in space on a wide 9. He wants to be in a phone booth and wants to fight you and go right, left, through you. Yep. He's not going to look good in space out here. He's not going to run well.
Yep.
Doesn't mean he's not productive, not a good player. Those are the two that come right to my mind, as opposed to the wiry, small edge rushers, Jonathan Grenard or Kendall Coleman. They like to turn the corner and they look all bendy on the figure 8 drill.
Yep.
So which of the two?
Bradley Anai or AJ Epinesa?
Let's go Epinesa.
Got one.
Ding, ding, ding.
Finally.
All Peter, right, can we put a little drop in there for a little?
We're talking at dinner last night, and we're talking about Epinesa, and I'm trying to. We're talking because Greg had not watched him yet. So I'm talking about who's a guy that he can kind of compare to, and I'm thinking like, who's a guy who's built that way, really skilled with his hands, holds up well against the run, not a super bendy guy, but he's long. I went with Trey Flowers. What do you think about that comp? Because he's not as like explosive and flexible as like JPP or like any of those guys. Like
from a body type perspective,
he's taller.
I see Trey Flowers as much more of a limb guy.
Yeah.
A little bit longer limbs. I also picture this really kind of tight waist on him.
Right.
Where I think AJ Epinesa is built more like a refrigerator. Like his shoulders and his hips are the same width.
I'm looking for his weigh-in numbers.
Where he looks like a block wearing shoes.
This morning. Let's see.
And Trey has that kind of tight, angular torso, and is really athletic and really looks small when he lines up in like no shade because of that. But the way they win and the violence and the ability to go inside, outside, through you type of pass rush.
Sure, right.
All day long, and I completely see that. And I'm not sure I really saw this level of player, Trey Flowers, at Arkansas. He played next to Darius Philon.
I missed on Trey
Martrell
Flowers.
Spates played behind him. I remember that little triangle of defense in Arkansas. They all ended up being decent pros.
Yep.
I didn't see it at Arkansas.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I'm not sure what were feeding them there in New England, but it turned into a really good player.
All right, we've got two other categories here. Okay. Next one. Okay, these are both offensive players.
Yep.
Okay, narrow it down to begin with. Will kill the drills. This is the position drills. Okay? Will kill the drills at wide receiver.
Wide receiver is going to kill the drills.
Yes.
We're talking like mainly like the gauntlet.
There's some low-hanging fruit here.
So remember, you're going to have your...
Oh, we're talking the gauntlet particularly.
Yes.
That's kind of where I went with this one.
I mean, kill the drills. I'm immediately thinking of like, Henry Ruggs is going to look great, and Jalen
But you got to think about workout warriors.
Not testing. It's more the position-specific drills here.
So in your mind, is going to go pluck, 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 confident hands, maintain speed, accelerate through the catch point. Easy.
He was extremely, extremely productive from a reception standpoint.
Sure, right.
In 2019.
I was leaning towards like a Van Jefferson, but now you're saying the production. He wasn't super productive at Florida and Ole Miss, and it's going to be a really good pro. My mind immediately said when I saw Fran's eyes in the gauntlet, or both, I see it in his face. The Devin Duvernay's of the world. Mr. Slot, Mr. Reliable, QB's best friend, junk catcher, adjuster. He's going to look great in a drill like that. I don't think he's going to test particularly well. He's probably
I think Duvernay's going to test pretty well.
I didn't see it on tape. I know he's got the track background.
I think he's going to test okay.
I think he's more of he played more like a possession receiver than a vertical burner. But he's got the burner background.
Jim Nagy tweeted out today like the guys he expected to test best in the 40 by body type, and he went like 190 to 200 pounds, 200 to 210, 210 to 220. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to break it down. He had Duvernay in that body type. But no, it is not Duvernay.
Duvernay is your stopwatch shocker,
He's my stopwatch shocker, yes, that is correct.
As far as just looking good, running routes, plucking the ball away
tied
from
for the nation
lead. Who's got some of the best hands, and who's one of the best route runners?
Tied for the nation lead in receptions.
It's a deep receiver group here, folks, all right? So there's a lot of names.
You love this player.
I'm sure I do. There's a lot of guys I love on this list.
SEC.
I don't want to go with any of the two Bama guys.
It's not one of the two Bama guys.
Not Justin Jefferson.
It's Justin
Jefferson. It is Justin Jefferson, Dude, once you got his tape, man, you love his tape.
Yeah. And he's just different. Again, trying to compare him to KJ Hamler, to all these guys, like we talked about earlier with Greg, like you can't, but dude, Jefferson's such a good player.
Yeah.
He's such a good player.
Really sharp route runner.
And I thought he handled himself really well at the podium yesterday, too. I like talking to him. Real quickly, Trey Flowers and AJ Epinesa, same exact arm length.
Really?
Looked it up.
There you go. Look at that.
Mail it in.
But because Epinesa is built like a refrigerator, the arms aren't popping out as much. That's why he's a little stockier, too. Maybe has a bigger chest to him as well.
Yep. All right, what do we got last?
And that's purely a body type thing.
Yes,
if we end up drafting him, I still love you, AJ.
Yeah.
So last one is...
Every team needs a couple refrigerators, too,
This is a tough one. 1 year wonder, okay? Offensive line.
Ooh, okay.
We're going to go... You got to go out to the West Coast.
Finding a 1 year starter on the offensive line is actually like near impossible. Like it's very, very hard.
One-hit wonder on the O-line. Interesting.
You mentioned a school with someone else earlier.
You should be able to get this guy.
Yeah, I'm dialed in here. Now, the one-hit wonders, I'm immediately thinking the injury guys, but they're not technically one-hit wonders. Like, is Natan Muti a one-hit wonder? Absolutely, he's a one-hit wonder.
There you go.
That's
Don't
who it is.
overthink it.
Yeah. Or like
exactly
even
what
like
it
a
was.
Lucas Niang. Is he a one-hit wonder?
And I
Like,
put in the thing because his 1 year was like 2017.
there's so many vets on this group.
I know.
It's so easy to fly through this.
Dude,
and like,
it's really, you can't find 1 year
nope,
stars
3
in your
years,
line.
4 years, 3
No.
years, 4 years.
Yeah.
Veteran, Senior Bowl, Senior Bowl, Senior Bowl.
It doesn't happen.
How long's Jack Driscoll been over there at right tackle? I mean,
He's
Braden
two,
Smith's
2
there.
years started
for
the last 2 years at
yeah.
Auburn, but he started at UMass before that.
Oh, I forgot
He's a
about the
transfer
UMass
from
transfer.
UMass.
Right. I mean, how much ball has Ben Barch played? He's a tight end, converted over,
2
put
year
on
starter,
80
2 year
pounds
starter
or
at
whatever
St.
at
John's.
school.
Dude, he described the protein shake that he.
Oh, it's disgusting.
dude, did you see this, Ben?
It's,
No.
It's eggs,
Oh, man.
cottage cheese.
Oh God.
But I'm hoping
It's-
I was the catalyst for any sort of weight gain transformations from this kid because I put up these little historical photos they have on his bio.
Oh, did you put
where
those?
He started as a 6'6",
I remember that.
220-pound tight end. He looks like a little schoolboy, and now he's turning into this big, grizzly 300-pound
It's got
tackle.
like the facial hair on
Right.
top of it now, where it's like all pristine, clean cut, and everything. And
7 scrambled eggs.
Yep.
7 eggs. Okay. Cottage cheese, oatmeal, peanut butter, banana.
And he had this at like 5 in the morning every day. He went from it was like 220 to
From like
what
the
is he
Porter
now?
Augustin school of
Yes,
midnight milkshakes.
I mean, that's pretty rough. He said he would hold his nose and just down it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's going down the list of the offensive line.
It's
It's
commitment,
tough
man.
to find that.
No, it's,
Time to
it,
find-
I,
tough
mean,
to
it's,
find
I
a
went
one-hit
with
wonder.
the Natani Muti, and it was because look, the guy played 1 year as a starter in 2017 as a freshman, and then was injured for 3 years after.
Some
that.
guys like Jonah Jackson, but he was a Rutgers.
But he
But
was
it's,
a
fun, it's funny.
player.
It's not even a guy who played 2019. We're
Right.
going like a couple
Right, it
years
was tough.
back to find
Right.
it. So,
So yeah, so that's again, you can go check those out on PhiladelphiaEagles.com. I'll tweet them out throughout the day,
A couple
every
of redshirt
day.
sophomores haven't played a lot.
Yeah, but each of them, those guys played.
Isaiah Wilson and
Isaiah
stuff.
Wilson
He still
started
played a
2
lot of
years.
ball, yeah.
It's tough, man. It's tough finding those 1 year.
See, in
guys.
high school, he took some Wildcat snaps.
Yeah, I've seen
Like
the video.
6'7", 300 pounds.
He has one of
massive.
my favorite laughs of any prospect here.
does
I
he?
just quoted him today. He's got like such a youthful, like jovial laugh. It was really, really funny. All right, let's get to the next segment here. Let's wrap it up here. It's time for Draft Mailbag.
Now it's time to hear from you, the fans, in the Draft Mailbag.
All right, so Draft Mailbag. Again, number one thing we wanted to remind you guys, if you get a chance, go on, rate, review. If you don't subscribe, make sure you're subscribed to the Journey to Draft podcast, wherever podcasts can be found. If you listen, just go and leave us a rating, leave us a comment. We'll get it here on the show. So give a shout out to 2 people that did that. P. Pope left a 5-star review, said they look forward to every episode, listens every single week. P. Pope, really appreciate the comment. Thanks so much for the rating as well on Apple Podcasts. And then PTG 1234567. Left a 5-star review.
What was it again? PTG.
PTG 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, 1 through 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
1 through 7. Hey guys, I did one of those mock draft machines that are floating around. So this was based off their values, okay? And he has the Eagles picking 9 players, starting with Alabama cornerback Trevon Diggs. All right.
Okay.
That's an A.
Fran's
love,
happy.
Love Trevon Diggs. Jalen Rieger.
Wow.
Check.
Okay, check.
There you go.
Khalid Kareem. We haven't talked about much about Khalid Kareem, Ben. Give us a Khalid Kareem elevator speech here.
Khalid Kareem, is that the Notre Dame kid on
Big-
the opposite
big
side
body
of
DN, yeah.
Julian Okwara there?
That's right, yep.
I haven't gotten to too much of his tape, but I know he's a little bit of a different style than Okwara on the
Yep.
other side, a bit of a heavy end,
Yep.
more of an edge setter, not a whole lot of flexibility getting after the passer, but a guy that I think can survive on early downs,
Yep.
which proves you play against the run, you can play.
I think you could slide him inside. He didn't
Yeah.
do much of it from what the film I've studied so far, but I think you could slide him inside and sub-package and hopefully get some stuff
There's
there.
a lot of exciting pass rushers, and he's not a guy I think is going to excite you. He's more just that kind of ho-hum, blue-collar guy that's going to do the dirty work for you.
Right.
Probably work his way through the back end of a roster, a day 3 type of guy, but special teamer, a guy that can kick inside, run
Sure.
defender. I mean, that's a guy that defensive line coaches want in the room.
Another third-round pick, Jordan Elliott. He's going before third round.
Yeah, yep.
But he's going off the value from
Yeah.
the mock draft.
There's a couple guys, Jordan Elliott, Ross Blacklock. Once people get hands on their tape,
Yep.
they're both juniors, a little bit late in the process. They seem like they're day 1 guys through and through.
Yep.
Now it's just figuring out the obviously only being 3-year players there.
Fourth rounder, Jeremy Chin, safety from Southern Illinois. I also think he might. I wonder if he could mess around and go late day 2.
Fran, I'm telling you, he's going to look like an Isaiah Simmons clone out here. I'm a huge Jeremy Chin
He's my
fan.
stopwatch shocker in the safety.
He is long,
cheat sheet.
he's broad, he's
Yeah.
fast, he's fluid, he's got ball skills, box
Productive.
skills, run defender, coverage skills. It's not everything you want in a 2020 defensive back.
Dude, every year he would be like the small school darling, but Kyle Duggar gets a lot of the headlines
Right.
this year because of Lenore Ryan. Dude, Jeremy Chin is a good player.
I keep
safety.
retweeting a clip I put up of him making a pick to the sideline from the middle of the field.
Yeah.
It's as good as any play Isaiah Simmons has put on tape. Obviously, he didn't go to Clemson and get some love. But if you miss on Isaiah Simmons in the first round, I mean, back end of day 2 there, maybe round 2.
Yep.
I could see Jeremy Chin. He's going to look good out here. I'm telling you, put him next to Isaiah Simmons, they're going to look similar.
Played some corner. FCS level, but played some corner.
Yeah.
He's got that in his background.
And Isaiah's going to the
Senior
linebackers
Bowl.
now. So
Yeah,
Chin
which
will
messes
be
up by the binders.
Yeah, it does. But
Really
Chin should be a
messed me
DB and will probably be one of the bigger DBs in the group now that Isaiah is
I meant to send that
officially
to you,
a linebacker.
C-Mac. Have we printed out the binders with so we can take notes efficiently? We talked about it yesterday on the show. And I've got Simmons with the safeties, so now we got to figure out how we're going to account for that in that binder. I'm not reprinting those.
I have to reprint mine as well because now the number order, they got to put Simmons in
That's
alphabetically.
the thing, it's all messed
and
up
then
now.
it'll bump the other ones down.
Oh, no.
I don't know. I got to think about that.
Oh, no, that'll throw everything off.
I'm on the broadcast.
Man, that's
I haven't thought about
That's
that.
going to ruin my day. All right, let's go. Let's keep going here. Devin Duvernay, the wide receiver from Texas there, in the 5th round. I think that value, that sounds, I think he'll probably go a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah.
But I can
catch
see
the
him
ball well.
there.
He's a great slot receiver.
Antonio Gandy Golden, so 3rd receiver here out of Liberty, going, I think that would be the 5th or 6th round in that
He's
area.
the day 3 version of T. Higgins.
Right.
Yep. Clones, except what did we just say?
I think some people think he could go day 2.
He's a really productive player. He's a good player. I think he's going to test well, but again, scouting the helmet, Liberty, Clemson, just kind of is what it is.
Ezra Cleveland, the tackle from Boise State, and Davion Taylor, we talked about him earlier, rounding it out. I think Taylor also was going to go later or earlier than that point.
So Ezra Cleveland, veteran player, senior, paved the way for a couple 1,000-yard seasons of Alexander Madison. A lot of seniors on the line there at Boise. Did his Florida State game to open the season.
Yep.
A lot of value on Florida State. You don't see those type of athletes in the Mountain West.
Yeah.
Didn't look great. And then I found out he was dealing with an injury the first 4 or 5 weeks.
Context is great.
And tried to play through it. Didn't always look good. And there's some guys putting out today say he could squeeze in the back end of round 1.
Man, that's because I know Dane brought him up on the show as a guy that would really impress as an athlete.
Right.
So
they gave him an end around as well, which was a fun play.
That's right.
I think it was a 5-yard gain in the low red zone. He didn't get it. He just missed. But just to speak of what they think of his athleticism, you only get those opportunities if you're something special.
No question.
I think he's a little bit underpowered. He's more of an upright guy. I thought he looked a little bit like John Theus at Georgia.
Yep.
But that was off of my opinion in the Florida State game.
With the injury, yeah.
So those types of contexts are really interesting.
No question.
So do I now say his tape stunk against Florida State? I give him a knock. Now is it the other way, and he tried to play through an injury and tried to do what he could for the team.
No.
And just the full conversation of these things are really interesting. You don't always know what you don't know.
The context is imperative.
But does the reverse happen where you watch maybe a prospect's best game ever and you think
100%
over the moon of a guy, and then it's like, well, did you watch?
He never looked like that again.
Exactly.
I can tell you, I watched a corner from the AAC, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but I watched a corner and I watched some early games, and I really liked his film, and I know a guy at the school, so I texted him. I was like, dude, no one is talking about this guy. How come no one's talking about him? And he's like, well, what games do you watch? And I told him I watched some of these games. He said, watch some of the later games. There was a game mid-season where he got beat often, and after that, he kind of struggled a little bit. So I'm like, okay, I got to watch some of the later stuff and just get a better sense. You can kind of paint the whole picture. But that context is often extremely helpful.
I had heard a story last year about a tackle, and he had a horrendous game, and apparently his 5-year girlfriend, high school sweetheart, had broken up with him the week before, and he wasn't eating. He missed a couple practices.
It happens.
At the end of the day, they're human beings,
Yeah.
and they're young 20 people going through life, and
Right.
whether it's instances like Cole Madison dealing with the loss of a friend and a teammate who committed suicide, or people dealing with love and things like that.
Do you guys know the Austin Jackson story from USC, the tackle from USC?
Vaguely, I know NFL.com has done a couple nice pieces with
Chase
them.
Goodbread did a great piece. I'm pretty sure it was Chase.
I want to attempt to say the medical terms he's doing for his sister, but you take it away.
Basically, he had his sister has. It was some kind of a disease where she needed a bone marrow transplant,
Right.
and he volunteered to give her the bone marrow transplant. Didn't miss a snap, so he gave it to her in the summer. He was all kinds of out of sorts. His body did not fully recover until mid-October. So the first part of the season, he's playing literally on backup batteries at this point, as he's trying to kind of get his body back up into shape. Didn't miss a down, kept going, and so there's games where he doesn't look as great against Utah and some of these other guys, but if you take that into context, I think it's kind of impressive.
And that's why you go to campus.
Yeah.
You don't need to always talk to the kid, but can you talk to his position coach, the
Find out
strength
what's going
coach,
on.
his academic advisor?
Yep.
Suddenly you're painting the full picture, not on the player, on the human being and the employee you may be employing in a
Yep.
couple months.
Yep.
And I think we forget that. We think they're just gladiators, players, athletes. They're men. They're going to be your teammates. They're going to be your
Yep.
coworkers. Like, you don't always know what you're getting, until you get them, and you try to just paint that full picture and who they are as a person, and it's kind of just a fun process.
No, it's a great part of the process. Excited for this process to continue this week. Again, we'll continue our daily shows here from the Indiana Convention Center here at Indianapolis. Tomorrow, workouts begin. Or I guess by the time you're listening to this, it's tonight workouts begin on NFL Network. Make sure you're tuning in. And we'll be back here tomorrow with another episode of the Journey of the Draft podcast driven by AAA. For Ben and Chris and Greg Cosell, I'm Fran. We'll talk to you tomorrow.